I think you could describe me as a classic extrovert. I thrive in hordes of people, and that's really where I get my energy from. But years ago, after a very nasty breakup, I started looking at this as a weakness, like an addiction that I needed to overcome. It was the end of the commercial season in Cape Town and the beginning of winter, and time to travel. But I had nobody to go with. The thought of spending 6 months in Cape Town, jobless, alone and cold, was really making me quite anxious. So I decided that I'd have to just do it on my own. I picked Vietnam, and 11 days later I was there, like a fish to water, completely. Traveling alone didn't mean that you actually had to be alone, but you were free to do whatever you want, be whatever you want, go, see, smell, eat, whatever you want. So it was amazing. Traveling alone became the only way to travel. And 12 months later, in the Dak, the north of India, I was at it again. I did feel like I hadn't really tackled the being alone thing though, so I needed to do that. And the way that I would do it was with a 7-day silent retreat. Those of you who know me are probably laughing right now because I can't really keep quiet. And you're not wrong, because after 5 days I was so constipated that I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I had to tell somebody and I needed help. Anyway, I threw caution to the wind. Silence and being alone is not for me. So I hopped on the back of Paolo's motorbike and off we went on epic adventures. He speaks about 10 times more than I do, and every time he has to tell a punchline to one of his stories, he slows down to almost completely a standstill, which was great. But by the end of it, I was again completely peopled out, and I again felt like I needed to be on my own and do that. I just needed to find a format that would work for me. And it was actually obvious. I was in the world's biggest mountains, surrounded by Ladakis, mostly Buddhist, very peaceful people, and it was safe. I could walk for days on my own in the mountains. It's perfect. So Paolo dropped me off at where there once had been a bridge. Now there was just a little wooden box and a zip line, and you'd have to put all your stuff inside the box and zip across the river. And I stood on the other side, waving goodbye to my friend. I remember that feeling pulsing through me of freedom and liberation and time and space and mountains and trust, so much trust. The first steps were probably one of the highest points of my life. I walked at such a rate with so much joy and so much speed that by the time I reached the first village, I had walked 2 massive blisters onto the balls of each of my feet. I sat down, I had lunch, took my shoes off. These bubbles of water were not going to stop me, so I plastered them up, plastered a smile across my face, and hit the road again. By dusk, I could barely walk. Every step was a very delicate balancing act. Until I finally found a tented camp run by a Tibetan man, and I was the only guest. He cooked me a delicious hearty meal. I soaked my feet, I curled up, and I went to bed. The next morning, I felt 100% again. I was ready to hit the road. I was completely determined. I walked past this group of Indian hikers that were like kitted to the hilt. And I remember giggling at myself, thinking like, I'm doing this quite minimalist, and there they are with all these, they've got all the stuff. And off I went, feeling full of myself. About an hour later, these bubbles of water had become my masters again. And I could barely walk. The first stream that I found, I just picked up my pace and just gunned towards it, because all I could think of was just taking my shoes off, putting my feet in the water and soaking them. And as I did that, the Indian hikers very quickly caught up to me and found me with my shoulders jerking up and down and tears streaming down my face, ugly crying, like Claire Danes. And they surrounded me. My feet were up in the air, they were plastering my feet up, giving me sweet things to eat, telling me all the things that I needed to hear, soothing me, saying, turn around, you can stop now, you didn't achieve it this time. Go to the previous village, speak to the man there, he has a donkey, he'll take you down. I didn't want to take a donkey, so I walked all the way back down to the beginning, and I felt completely like a failure. And when I got back, walking through the guest house gate with this overwhelming sense of defeat. I was just enveloped by the faces that I had learned to love. And they told me, you know, they comforted me, and they passed no judgment. And I realized that no man is an island. Although some are better at it than others, I'm certainly a herd animal. I need people. People are my home. And so in these lockdown days, while the introverts are definitely thriving, I just want you to know this. It is a tough time for the extroverts. By the way, I'm wearing pajamas underneath.